Today, let's look at the top 5 New Jersey counties from the recent governor's election and see which of them moved the most toward the Democrats compared to the 24 presidential election. Back in 24, Harris won it by an unexpectedly narrow 5.9%. But a year later, for governor, Mikey Sherrill, the Democrat, won by an unexpectedly large margin of her own. So two wildly different results, but they are two different elections for two different offices in two totally different dynamics. But it goes to show a lot can change in a year, and both sides can be underestimated. Now we can also take a look at Virginia in a future video. But before we get to the countdown, let's get a refresher here on New York Times about this margin. So Sherrill is at 56.9, Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican, 42.5. Not the margin people were expecting, myself included. So big overperformance there for Sherrill. And she even flipped 4 counties. Those are Gloucester, Atlantic, Cumberland, and one of them is outside of South Jersey. It's Morris County. Close margin there, 51-49, but it did go blue. So there's really nothing positive here for the Republicans, kind of like how there was almost nothing positive here for the Dems after 24. So it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison, but let's get into the top 5 comparing the two most recent high-profile elections in this state. So between 24 and 25, the county that moved the 5th most toward the left is Essex. And as usual, we've got the county highlighted in red here on the map at the right. So New Jersey is the most densely populated state. Many of these counties have heavy populations. This one is the state's second most populous. And that population clocks in at about 863K. Now what we usually do is take a look at the demographics. Maybe we'll find some common themes here. Well, in 2020, the white population was 27%. Black is at 37.5. Asian, almost 5.5. And Hispanic is over 24. So a pretty significant mix of different backgrounds here. Now they don't have the household income data for this county right here. Well, we can take a look at the historical population. It looks like it peaked back in 1970, where they were at 932,000. So their population today is similar to what it was between 1940 and 50. So there was always a ton of people living here. It's not too far outside of New York City. So let's go down here and take a look at the recent election results. And we've got president here. This is a super blue county. Harris won it with 71.5%. Trump was at 26.7. Now that is the lowest for a Democrat and the highest for a Republican since 2004. So a couple of decades there. But a few points here and there could make all the difference. So narrower there for president. Well, they've got a few U.S. Senate races here if you want to take a look at that. The governor is right here. And in 25, Sherrill got it with 76.9%, Ciattarelli at 22.6%. So it's pretty clear here that Sherrill did better than Harris. Ciattarelli did worse than Trump. But for the purposes of this video, again comparing president in 24 to governor in 25, this county swung 9.4% toward the left. That's good enough for the 5th most in New Jersey. They're only going to get bluer from here. Let's go to number 4. This is Union County. And this is just south of Essex. It's the state's 7th most populous county. Population comes in at 575K. So not quite in North Jersey. Let's go down here and take a look at the demographics. White population, almost 37. Black, 19.5. Asian is at 5.5, and Hispanic is at 34. So it's another pretty good mix of different backgrounds here. The overall population here, it's increased a little bit here in recent decades, and the current population is the highest it's been in its history. So let's get down into the recent election results. Down here, Harris won it with 60.9%, Trump at 36.8. That is a pretty big shift compared to 2020 when Biden was at 67 and Trump was at 31.5. So substantial movement here in 4 years. But what about in just 1 year? Let's compare it with the governor's race. Here, Sherrill's at 67.2, Ciattarelli 32.2. So this is much more on par with Trump and Biden in 2020. Almost everything that swung toward the right here swung pretty much back toward the left a year later. It comes in at 11%. That's good enough for number 4. How about number 3? Here's Middlesex County. This is again just south of Union, and the total population here is about 863,000. That's good enough for the state's third most populous county. So what about the demographics? Well, this county highlights the significant concentration of Indians, and it also mentions that it's home to a large Jewish community. For the rest of the demographics, it's 38.6% white. Black is at 9% here, Asian 26, and Hispanic is over 22. Now for this county, it does list the median household income. That comes in at $93,400. The median family income is $107K. 8.8% were below the poverty line. Now the total population here, it's also the highest out of any decade in its history. A ton of growth took place here last century, and it slowed a little bit over the past couple of decades. But how does that translate into the recent election results? Well, for president, we've got Harris at 52.3, Trump 44.3. So much closer of a county, an 8-point win here for Harris. That's a lot closer than in 2020, where Biden was over 60 and Trump was at 38. But did all that movement toward the right just go back to the left in the last governor's race? The short answer is yeah, it did, and then some. Sherrill's at 62.6, Chitterelli 36.7. That's worse than Trump got in all three of his runs. And Sherrill did better than Hillary, Biden, and Harris. And once you combine all that, that comes out to an 18-point swing compared to 2024. That is seriously significant movement, but there's two counties that swung even more. Number 2 is Passaic County. Now this one is back up there in North Jersey. It's again in that New York vicinity. It's the 8th most populous county with 524,000. How about the demographics? Here the white population is 38.8. Black is just under 10. Asian 5.8. And Hispanic is up there at 42.7. The median household income here is $77,000. And the total population, it's also the highest it's been at any other point. A lot of growth here over the past 150 years. The only time it dipped was in 1980. And how about the last election? Well, we've got Trump here. He actually won this county. He flipped it. He got 49.6. Harris, 46.8. That's massive stuff because the last time it was red was in 1992. On Trump's first run, he lost it by 22 points, 59.5 for Hillary. It narrowed up a little bit in 2020, and then there was that massive lurch toward the right in 24. So let's compare those numbers to the last governor's race. Here, Sherrill is at 57.7, Chitterelli 41.6. So obviously, Sherrill flipped it back by more than double digits. And this is much closer to being on par with what Biden and Trump did in 2020. So pretty much all the movement toward Trump in 24 was completely wiped out here in this governor's race. Once you combine the numbers, that comes out to a massive 19-point swing between the two elections. That's the second most, but we've got one more county that comes in for the top spot. That is Hudson County. That's number 1. Now, it's pretty much right near some of the other counties in this video. It does say it's the state's smallest and most densely populated. It's the 4th most populous county, and the population here is 724,800. So everybody wants to know who lives in this county. Well, let's find out. Well, first of all, we've got the second largest Cuban American population outside of Miami, and the white population is at 28.5. Black is again just under 10. Asian 17. Hispanic 40.4. Now this county did lose a little bit of population from 1940 through 1990. Ever since then, it started to go back up. So it took a hit, but there's been a rebound. And the median household income here is $78,800. 14% were below the poverty line. And finally, let's see what happened in the recent election results. In 24, we've got Harris at 62.3, Trump 34.4. It's still very blue, but it is much narrower than when Biden was at 72.5 and Trump was at 26.2. So almost a 28-point win there for Harris. And the final piece of information we need is what happened in the last governor's race. Sherrill's at 74.7. Chitterelli, 24.1. If you look just above, Sherrill did better than Harris, then Biden, and then Hillary. Chitterelli did worse than Trump in 24, worse than Trump in 20, but he did better than him in 16. Either way, that's a massive amount of movement back toward the left. The total combined movement here comes in at 23%. That's the most out of any county in the state. And those are the top 5 counties. Here's the full list of counties. So is there a common theme here? None of these counties shifted toward Chitterelli. The surface level take is all the gains Trump made in 24 were wiped out in 25. The state kind of reverted back to its normal partisan lean. That means voters are fluid. Even though it's a blue state, they're not completely committed toward the Dems, even though it really wasn't close here for Trump in 16 and 20. At 24, everything proved to be different. Enough voters gave him a chance, so much so that Harris only won the state by under 6%. But Cheryl came right back and she reassured Democrats that this is not going to be a swing state at any point. Now, that's true until it's not. Nobody saw 24 coming with that narrow margin. Things could easily change again. The easiest thing to predict is that whatever happened last time is going to happen next time, but that's clearly not going to hold up. As for the demographics, a lot of the focus is on the Hispanic voters in North Jersey. They moved toward Trump, now they're back toward Cheryl. Now, it's a different election, it's a different office. Some of the issues are the same in 24, some of them are different. The biggest thing is usually going to be the economy and inflation. I think voters think it was pretty bad under Biden. That's why enough either stayed home or went toward Trump in 24. Now that he's been in office for a year, the perception is things haven't really gotten much better, if at all. So now voters are open to going back in the other direction, and so far it looks like that's what they've done. So it's clear that neither side can really take these demographics or this state for granted. It's not a total lock for the Dems, but it does clearly lean in that direction. If Harris was in office, I would suspect the margin would be closer for Cheryl. Maybe she still would have won, but it could be a completely different dynamic. Both sides tend to let it go to their heads. Who knows what's going to happen next? But for now, these are the top 5 counties that shifted the most between 24 and 25 in New Jersey. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of these counties? Do you live in this state? Are you familiar with these counties? Are you shocked by how much they moved back toward the left? What about with the specific demographics? Is it all about the economy, or are there other factors involved? And the all-important question is, what's going to happen in the next couple of elections? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.